La 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 la.
Inner Wealth Podcast.
La 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 la.
Inner Wealth Podcast.
La 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 la.
Inner Wealth Podcast.
Get out the matrix and live.
You know what day it is? Inner Wealth Podcast. Meditate and give. So manifest the greater this. And things all good cause I say it is. Invest in your inner wealth. Real generational wealth is mental health. It's an inside game, no toxicity. Let's talk and more listening. Ladies and gentlemen, and now introducing David McCullar, founder of Inception, the first mental health gym.
La 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 la.
Inner Wealth Podcast.
La 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 la.
Inner Wealth Podcast.
La 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 la.
Inner Wealth Podcast.
Get out the matrix and live.
All right, everyone. Welcome back to the Inner Wealth Podcast. I got a very special guest in the building. I got my girl Dejanay in here.
Hello, hello.
What up, though? As we say. What does Cleveland say? They ain't got a type of slang.
What's up? Hey.
That's it?
Yeah.
Y'all ain't got nothing special?
Nothing special.
Bone Thugs ain't come up with nothing that was like, yeah.
I wish, no.
Chilling on East 1999.
Right.
Nothing, huh?
Nothing.
Man, so listen, we I spent probably about probably the time I was 18, 19 to about maybe 24, 25 in corporate America, working and, seeing kind of like the transition from going, from where I grew up from to like working in a corporate environment was a big transition, basically.
Absolutely.
What I'm saying. And specifically for a man of color. And so I know you've been a corporate working woman for some years, and we're going to discuss like the components that come from being a minority working in a corporate space and how that affects you mentally, emotionally, and even how that affects you financially, because you see things, you see people who don't look like you move up faster than you, even though you may be more credentialed and more skilled. So let's talk about that.
Let's do it. So I have been in corporate America now for 7 years, the bulk of my career. And I started off in the construction management industry and then migrated into the architecture and engineering interior design industry. And one of the things that I immediately noticed is that every room I went in, I was the only person of color. And so growing up in an environment that was more diverse, it definitely wasn't completely uncomfortable for me because I was used to that. But it was a transition for me to kind of have to adopt to that. And then also, as you mentioned, as you start to go along the course of your career and you see people move up, I was personally of the notion that I had to go into every room or every situation or work environment and be 10 times better than anybody else to get half of the respect. And so I really spent the bulk of the beginning of my career just totally going hard in the paint, working as hard as I could and seeing that there was a disparity and a different dynamic when it came to people of color being able to move up. I also noticed that I had to really explain who I was as a person, and I found myself initially altering who I was or my norm to fit in to that corporate standard. And so the corporate standard was, very stern. You have to wear your hair a certain way. They expect you to be presented a certain way. And so I started to naturally fold into that dynamic because it made me more comfortable. So I noticed that every day I'm waking up, I'm doing my makeup. I'm straightening my hair.
Well, I noticed something too. When I first met you, 'cause I've known you for a few years now, more than a few years, probably about 3 years now.
Yeah.
And your name is Dejanay.
Yes.
Right?
Let's talk about that.
Let's start there.
Okay.
Dejanay. And then when I was like, well, send me your email, and then you send me your email was like D White. And I was like, who is D? Because like even saying when I call people say this is D, I just try to tell people this is Dejanay.
Yeah.
I don't want to have to like abbreviate your name because then people gotta go, oh, Dejanay, but you had to do that. So what was that about?
Oh my gosh. So that is a phenomenal question. So I noticed that going into the corporate setting, number one, my name is Dejanay, like you mentioned, and all throughout school and growing up, it's hard for people to pronounce. It's different. And so when I went into the corporate setting, I noticed that I'm submitting my resume all over. I know I'm qualified. I know I have the experience, and I can't even get a call back. And so just for shits and giggles, I changed it from Dejanay to D, and I'm immediately getting calls, follow-ups, and everything. Another kind of caveat to that, at one point, because I'm in the marketing space, we are creatives, and so I had my headshot on my resume, like a professional headshot. And I had a Black colleague of mine, someone that was more so like a mentor, and she said, "You should take that headshot off." And I understood the place that she was coming from, but I was so offended that I would have to remove an image of my face in order to have a better opportunity or chance to get a job opportunity or get a call back. And so I ended up adopting that name D because it made things easier for me. It helped me navigate smoother. I didn't have to spend 5 seconds every time going through the entire, what does it stand for? And it's nice, or I can't pronounce it. And it just made life easier for me. And I remember being at a conference and running into a colleague, someone older than I was, successful. And he goes, "Your name is Dejanay, and you need to make them respect that. So you're doing yourself an injustice by going by D or by shortening who you are." And so it was a very eye-opening moment for myself where I had to do some more internal digging and say, why are you more comfortable with changing who you are to be accepted instead of embracing who you really are and where you come from?
Mm-hmm. So did that make you actually start using your name as Dejanay as it's spelled?
For sure. It definitely...
And then, you already got the job, too. They're
Yeah,
about to fire you,
yeah,
right?
exactly.
Yeah, you got the job.
Exactly. So it's kind of like a both. My entire career has been D, and so I'm still in that process of training myself to not go by D or even introduce myself by that. So it's still a process for me to kind of get out of that.
Hey, other cultures do it all the time, too, though.
Yeah.
You know, when you're Indian or I've seen Chinese, because I work with some people abroad, and they'll say their name is Sam.
Right, and you're
You
like,
see their name,
come
like,
on
no,
now.
their name ain't Sam. Or Amy Wan.
Right.
Amy, I used to buy my shoes from Amy Wan. I used to buy all my Jordans. I was doing drop ship. Well, I wasn't doing drop ship. I was buying bulk orders of Jordans.
Yeah.
Amy Wan was the person I talked to, and I'm like, Amy, what's your real name?
Right.
She put it what it was. I was like, Amy. It's Amy. So, but you know, the thing is, do we even know how that really affects us mentally? That we have to make these micro adjustments to kind of fit in,
Right?
You know, you kind
Absolutely.
because really what you're saying is that who I am is not fully accepted, but here's the other flip side to it too. See, if you work in Black America, then it wouldn't be an issue, right? But you don't work in Black America. You work in corporate America, and corporate America is mainly white.
Absolutely.
Now, can I be mad about how the rules and regulations that they want to press upon us to be able to work in their situation?
Right.
Should I be mad?
Right.
Like, when I think about it, like as I was younger, yeah, I got frustrated with certain things that I saw. Like, and let's be honest too, I think one job that I first got when I came out of this technical school was at Link Networks. Okay. And so they hired me, and I don't know, I started thinking about years later they probably hired me because I was lighter skinned. Lighter skinned guy.
Yeah.
Because you know, they're going to hire you based on, are you going to cause issues?
Right.
Are you going to be a problem? Not just about your skill set, about everything else.
Absolutely.
You know, so when you lighter, you
get a little bit more of a pass. It's
Yeah.
just the reality and nature of the game, and I've never been afraid to kind of admit to that. And you brought up a really great point. So when I first started out in my career, the gentleman that I worked for was in corporate America and did business in corporate America, but he was a African American man. And I came into the office really showing my personality. And not in a way that was inappropriate. So I would maybe wear a blouse that was a bright color or had a floral pattern. Or there would be times where I would wear a red lip. And he literally pulled me to the side one day and said, "You are bringing too much attention to yourself because of the color. You need to wear black. You need to water this down." And so I started coming into the office looking like a grandma. Now, and my thing is, it's one thing if it's inappropriate for corporate, but I am wearing professional clothes. You see women wear a red lip all the time. And so even as a black man, he was changing how he felt I needed to represent myself. And then two, throughout the years, I have so many very interesting examples of situations that I've encountered where you really have a rift when it comes to your identity and who you are. And so I will never forget, there was a time where I was in a diversity training. And as a part of that training, the gentleman was very clear in saying, this is an open and safe space for you to ask whatever you want to ask and communicate it in an environment that is open. And during that entire training, no one asked any questions. Everybody was like uptight and nervous and scared to say how they really felt. The week after, I personally faced so many microaggressions. It was ridiculous. So I had a lady who came up to me and she goes, "I know in that training they said, don't ask or try to touch a person of color's hair, but I really want to feel your hair. Can I touch your hair?" And before I could even respond, she was like petting my curls. I had another situation where a gentleman goes, "Yeah, I just don't understand what you guys would like to be called. Back in the day it was Negro and colored and my granddaughter is black and I just don't know." And in my mind, number one, we're in a meeting. So we're not in that diversity space anymore. So the comment is completely out of line and inappropriate. But I'm thinking to myself, how about a human being, for starters? Let's start there, because I don't think anybody, no matter what race or color, wants to be identified as anything other first, primarily as a human being.
Right.
And I had so many situations that were like that, and I found myself so frustrated. I remember we were working on a project one time that was in a diverse community, and I put together a proposal. And some of my colleagues, they go, "This is great, but there's too many white people on this proposal, and this is going to an urban community, so let's change that." And somebody just blurted out, "Oh, well, we could just take a selfie of you and slap that on there." And I'm like, are you kidding me right now? So it's like, but it was coming from a place, somewhat of a place of understanding, because they knew, how can we go into a diverse community or an urban community and not let our work look diverse to make them feel comfortable? So they definitely were maybe in the right mindset initially of how they wanted to communicate that, but it was the way in which they went about it that caused the microaggression. And that's happened to me time and time again.
And what's a microaggression? What does that mean?
So
because I've heard it before.
Yeah.
Oh, microaggression. Like, what is a microaggression?
Yeah, so I mean, by definition, it is, when you are inflicting a certain emotion or thought in a way that is not open or welcoming. So instead of
that's called passive aggressive.
Okay.
Now they again, like we're talking about, they'll we'll keep making more. We talked about this, right? You got entrepreneurial fatigue, you got compassion fatigue, you got burnout. You got all these different words and different ways to try to just say I'm stressed out or I got trauma.
Right.
Like, no, it's the same thing. So when you say microaggression, I'm like, no, you're dealing
something
with
offensive.
You're dealing with a threat. Because that passive aggressiveness is really like, that person is really aggressive. It's not even passive aggressive. It's aggression.
Right. Right.
It's aggression, and you can feel that. And you can feel when you walking into a business. I remember this one guy that was at the company that I work with, and it was two black guys that worked there with me, and they were more like in sales roles. I was in more of a technological role. But it's funny how, like, when you saw them, where I saw them, I immediately kind of gravitated to them. You know, I gravitated to them, and I remember one of them saying a remark about, you know, being black or something. I'm just like, damn, he get it. Like, you know, it's like we feel like we're on an island unto ourselves within this thing. We really we're here, but if they didn't have certain rules in place, would we be here?
Right. And sometimes we put ourselves in those boxes too. So I remember being in middle school and high school where it was most prevalent. And I went to a suburban school. There was a big Indian population, a big Asian population. And so it was definitely more diverse than most schools. And I had a variety of different friends. I had all types of different friends. And so once we would go to lunch, all the black kids sat at the same table. And I sat with my group of friends, and my group of friends were diverse. They were from all different races, backgrounds, everything. And I remember I would walk past that table where all the black kids sat. Nobody told them they had to sit there. And they would make fun of me, call me names, call me Oreo. And so within
Our people will call you Oreo.
Yes.
Yeah.
So within my own race, you know, the black kids bullied me the most. And, you know, as time went on, I found myself, once I got to high school, transitioning out of this space of I'm going to be friends with who I want to be friends with, and I'm going to like people for who they are, and I don't care what people think, to going from middle school now into high school, and now I'm changing how I'm dressing, and I'm doing things because I want to be accepted now by these black kids. And it wasn't until my dad pulled me aside, like, this is not you. If it was you, then I have no quarrels with it. But stay true to who you are no matter what. And so you find these types of disparities amongst people that are different from you, and also with people who are, you know, of the same background as you as well.
Have you thought about, you know, as being older and looking back on those experiences in childhood and in corporate America, have you looked and saw how that affected you, like to this day?
Yeah.
You know, like, because some of those could be, I don't want to call it traumas because everybody's overblowing the word trauma. Trauma is anything that happens too soon, too fast, too sudden. I mean, that's when you're spiked. You're really going into protection. But at the same time, there's a such thing as called soft traumas. And soft traumas when there's regular demeaning remarks and things that just something that you know you're going to school and you're not in a safe place. Right. So if I go into the school and I know I'm not in a safe place, consciously my body is going to start to respond to that lack of safety that I feel. So have you, because I hated school, and I had some very stressful trauma-filled events that stem from preschool, middle school. You know, that's where a lot of trauma that a lot of people get. You know, they don't understand that it's coming from that even in quote-unquote safe places that seem safe because of the teacher or whatever, like, no, like you could still be experiencing massive stress and trauma.
Right, absolutely. And I think even to this day, I am in the constant cycle of, number one, being conscious of how I am reacting or behaving in certain situations. And it's kind of like a self-check. So, for example, I will talk to you, and this is my normal talking voice, but then I may get on the phone with my girlfriend and it's a totally different type of dialect. And then I may go around a different group of people and now I'm talking like super proper like this. And like, so we find ourselves constantly changing. Exactly. So it's like, you know, it's kind of like this toss up. Like, are you just not being true to who you are and really trying to make yourself more approachable in that space, or do we naturally try to kind of alter things based on the situation? You know?
Yeah, I mean, everything is not like oh, you're trying to fit in. It's something is rapport.
Absolutely.
Building rapport, but in building rapport, it's like those movies back in the day when a black guy meets a white guy and the white guy comes, yo, yo, yo,
Yeah.
what up? Like
Exactly.
that. That's like,
Yeah.
why you talking like that?
Right.
So that's one of them things. But I'm in the Spanish community with salsa and everything, and ya tu sabes, like I speak, but
Yeah.
I know. I'm not trying to be offensive. I'm not just trying to fit in. That is Spanish dialect.
Right.
With us, it's not like, you know what I'm saying. It's a little different.
Yeah.
It's a little different with us. But I think we try to build rapport, and
Right.
some of it is trying to fit in.
Yeah, for sure. And I think
It's a fine line, I think, to it though.
absolutely. And I really commend the companies, especially in corporate America, that are taking a different approach because they realize the status quo is not working.
Name one.
So I worked
Okay.
for a company, and it was within the same industry I've always been in, which has been a very corporate, predominantly white industry. And the company, I come in, I'm got my business Barbie mode on, and I get inside, and there's a gentleman walking by. He has a huge mohawk. I see other people, they have piercings, crazy colored hair, tattoos, and it gave me like a breath of fresh air where I realized like, okay, these people are able to express themselves and also still be taken seriously.
But were they white?
They were.
So then it's like, yeah. Well, you've been always
They
able to do
were.
what you want to do, though.
Right.
You've always been able to do what you want to do. Now, if you told me there's some sisters in there with afros and wearing their hair however they wanted to, but two, I do think, I don't know, like as a corporation, like there has to be like a standard,
Yeah.
like obviously, I have a company and tattoos, whatever, that's fine. Your
Right.
piercings, but just look clean.
Still professional.
And
of
but
course.
what is professional? Let's even
Yeah,
go there because
yeah.
because what is that?
Right. So
And where does that even come from? That comes
Right.
from like did you see a chart that said this is professional? Mm-hmm. So that chart looks like, for me as a man going in, as a shirt and tie,
Right.
khakis, pants or whatever, or nice dress slacks, nice shoes. It's fitting that model.
Right.
But what is that from your standpoint?
Yeah, so the same thing, we've been customized, or you know what I mean, to know or think and feel that you have to dress a certain way or look a certain way. And I think for me personally, professionalism is dressing or presenting yourself according to what you're doing. So, for example, I may go on vacation and I have a cute little tiny bikini on, but that's not necessarily the time and place for me to wear that same type of attire in a corporate type of environment. So I think for me, having that balance of what is appropriate and not appropriate. And then two, people will argue I should be able to wear whatever I want, and a person should, still respect me as such. And so, you might have a woman who may come in and they have a blouse and it's low cut and they have cleavage. And so they might say, I should be able to wear that. You can, and I agree with you. However, just know that will still come with stereotypes. And that's not to say that you shouldn't still own it and do as you please, but just know how you present yourself, it will come with the territory, and be willing to acknowledge that, and you can choose to dismiss it or not,
Yeah.
So it's
Looking at
just-
the data would probably be very important, like in terms of like, again, when you come into a corporation or whatever you're trying to do, what is the outcome, what is the goal, and what is the intention? And if
Right.
you're coming into a situation and you're coming into a situation and your intention is to come in and help us get to here, but when you do so, how you're dressed takes the attention off the
Right.
outcomes that you're looking for, to the point where now everybody you're working with, their vision and thoughts is not on the outcome either. It's just on what you got on, and every day you come in and people can't get their work done because of it's all little things, that happens like that. But it's kind of like fine line, and I think that we're going to a time period where a lot of these ideals have to be torn down and then reestablished about, well, what is that?
Absolutely.
And it's happening with relationships too. You know, the whole traditional single man, single woman. Now you, and it's not like it's new. It's not like poly and all these other
Yeah.
things are new. They're not new. They're just now more. People are living their lives how they really want to live now.
Right. Right.
And two, with the influencer model or the social media model, where people can kind of, when you make money and you make a lot of it, you really get to be yourself.
Right.
Let me read this. I saw this too. It made me think about it, but it's a meme I just saw. It said, I need to be successful so I can behave the way I want and be considered eccentric instead of insane. So when you get to a certain place, like Steve Jobs can wear a black turtleneck and jeans every day.
Right.
But in traditional corporate America, jeans is not even a thing, right? So, but again, it's like we have to get to a place where we understand, yeah, we can do what we want, but at the same time, you got to understand how doing what you want, the outcome of doing what you want, what that looks like.
Right.
You know?
I think it's about just setting up boundaries. And what I mean by that is this is never going to be a black and white type of thing. There's always going to be a gray area. So, I do agree with you completely that we have to kind of tear down a lot of these standards so that change can happen. But within that change, if there aren't certain standards, then now you have chaos. So, for example, I may want to attend an event or something like that is more outward or just more, let's just say I want to go to something that is more appropriate for adults. You know what I mean? Like there's a standard and norm there that certain things are for children, certain things are for adults, and you don't really cross those lines in a way that is inappropriate. So I think the same applies to kind of the corporate setting and things like that, where self-expression is phenomenal and great, but just have a level of discernment to know the time and place for everything.
Right.
You know?
How is corporate starting to, in your 7 years and being there, and you seeing the mental health starts to rise up in terms of like the conversation? What did you see internally? Like what was their mindset on the new topic of mental health, even though it's not new, but what was that for them?
So when I think prior to the pandemic, there was this mentality in the corporate world where you just you're on that hamster wheel where you are showing up, you're leaving, you are constantly in that cycle of do. And I was afforded the opportunity to be at a company in the latter of my career where it was more flexible and open, and it wasn't necessarily like where you feel this pressure to I have to sit in front of this computer and focus and get this done, where you could kind of do things as you please as long as you met deadlines. When the pandemic hit, everything stopped in the corporate setting and no one really knew what to do. So I think there was this period of time where everyone was kind of in limbo and just holding their breath. And then after that initial shock, all of the meetings and Zoom calls that I would be a part of, they were essentially, it wasn't about work anymore. It was, how's everybody coping with this? How are you feeling? And so it completely took out this, career driven, let's focus, let's get work done, we have stuff to do. It was like, what's going on with you internally? And so I started to see an addition of things that weren't ever there before. So we were having Zoom calls to meditate. We were having Zoom calls scheduled for wellness. We were having Zoom calls to like have happy hour and hang out with each other. And so we were finding different ways to kind of cope and deal. And then it really blew the lid off when it came to mental health, because as the pandemic prolonged and people got more comfortable with the flexibility of, wow, I can work from home, have my kids here, and still get paid, and I'm still productive at getting my work done. So when things started to try to go back to normal and we want you to return back to the office, people are like, the hell with that. I don't want to do that. And I've also proven and shown that I can still be effective, if not more effective, without that dynamic. And so there were people who definitely got lazy and were the latter, you know what I mean, where they may need that structure in order to be productive. But a lot of people, it opened up the flexibility. And personally, I speak for myself when I say I was so used to picking up and going and being caught up in that rat race that I didn't even realize how toxic that was on my mental. And then when the pandemic happened and it forced us to finally slow down. Right. We didn't have a choice but to slow down. And it was in that moment where I realized I don't think I want to return back to that toxic environment. And I
You talking about the office or the job in itself?
Just corporate America.
Corporate America.
In and of
Because
itself.
you're not a part of corporate America, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's scary. It's scary because you're so used to that. And it provides you a safety net. You know, if you go to work and show up, you're going to get a paycheck and be able to take care of X, Y, and Z.
That's one thing I can say. Working in corporate settings, I was going to get paid.
Yeah.
Every 2 weeks.
But that safety net doesn't equate being happily mentally. So I was at a point where I was at the highest I had ever been in my career. I was making the most amount of money I'd ever made in my career. I was in a culture that appeared to be very flexible and open and diverse. And I was in the worst and most miserable mental state I had ever been in my life. So that forced me to break down what I thought would give me happiness and really start to do some digging to figure out what is really going to make you happy and how do you figure that out. And what came out of that is it's not about things. It's not about security. It's not about a paycheck or money or being able to financially take care of yourself. The bottom line is you just want to be happy.
Well, I think the bottom line is you want to feel better. Now, happy is one of the words that you want to use to describe feeling better, but you want to feel better, you want autonomy, and you want certainty. That's what it is certainty. Sure. That's really what we're trying to get at these jobs is a certain level of certainty. But it comes at a price too, like you said. You know, if you work in one of these type of big corporate, because when these things get so big, it is what it is. Yeah, you're a machine. Right. I mean, I think small businesses working for small businesses have their issues too, mainly financial. Because a lot of especially black-owned small businesses, because we're severely underfunded.
Absolutely.
Like I see, and we can go here.
Okay.
Because I see people in other cultures, mainly white culture, get investments in some garbage. Like what? Yeah. You go on Shark Tank and they gave you investment for that?
Right.
Like that's garbage.
Right.
Like I've been in the world of raising money and the venture capitalists and all that stuff, and they'll invest money and stuff. Let's go there with Elizabeth Holmes, who basically her company Theranos. I can't remember the valuation. I should pull up the valuation on this company. It's ridiculous.
So give me some background on the company while you're looking that up.
So she basically created this. It was supposed to be a device, right? That was supposed to be able to take your blood, right? And then take your blood and dang, I didn't know this. This messed up.
What?
She's an Aquarius.
Oh,
man, it's February 3rd. Her birthday.
No,
she's too close to me, man.
That's my birthday.
That was your birthday.
Yes.
I'm February 4th. So nah, she's messing up.
Not a good look.
So anyway, she was convicted. But anyway, so let me pull it up here. This is a really good story, and it just shows you the discrepancy between white and black in terms of raising money and even just corporate America. This woman really thought that Steve Jobs was like a figure she looked up to the point where she changed her voice.
Oh wow!
She like started talking like this, like she changed her voice up, man, because she thought people would like respect her more.
Yeah.
But when she stopped talking like, yeah, so we had the blood transfusion, and then she slipped up one time. She's like, hey guys, and it was like,
They're
what?
like, what? Right.
Right. So her company, let me pull it up fully. She ended up getting found guilty of fraud. Let me see here. Self-made billionaire. Okay, that's what I wanted to look for.
Okay.
So the valuation that she was estimated $9 billion valuation.
How? Like,
$9 billion valuation. The device that she said she created, it never even worked.
and did anybody even do their due diligence on that end?
Listen, do you know she had people like, I think like Steve Wozniak or somebody, from Apple was on her board. Like she had Silicon Valley people
This is
in the company. I mean, you talking about evaluation at $9 billion. Valuation,
That's insane.
not evaluation. It's called valuation. People always say, I got the evaluation. No, it's a valuation, not evaluation. And she was a Stanford dropout. And yeah, she had like a general on her board. She had all this backing.
This reminds me of Inventing Anna.
She had all this backing, and it was all fraudulent.
Okay.
And she had raised the amount of money she raised. Obviously, when you got a $9 billion valuation, she's raised probably close to $1 billion and money. And
At that point, you can.
but again, look, you raise all that money, and you don't even have a working model. The amount of money that she raised is probably more money that Black people have ever seen in venture capitalists, period. Like in its existence.
Right. In its entirety.
In
All
its
of
entirety.
it. All of it. Yeah.
Black people, we have never raised $9 billion. Let's just say it's $1 billion. We've never raised $1 billion in money. You just think about if a company wants to raise $1 million. So another guy who owned a company called McCullar, which was a fusion. What he was using? He was using like nuclear fusion or some type of fusion, trying to just change how we use trucks.
Right.
They were using a different type of source to fuel the trucks. Right. Again, $20 billion valuation or something, all fraudulent.
Right. And that's, it goes back to my initial statement where I stated, as a person of color, I'm of the belief, like, you really do have to go in the room 10 times better to get, half the amount of respect. So in this situation, that probably, a person of color probably would have never been able to get that far with that at all. They would have broken it down.
Yeah.
Somebody at some point would have said, I need proof. I need to see this. Like the data we would have had to come to the table with every T crossed and every I dotted. So, in a situation like that, her T's and I's, they weren't crossed, dotted, anything, and she was still able to take off. So you see those disparities and things like that all the time.
Let me show you this. Net income for McCullar Corporation, negative $397 million. Total assets, $1 billion in assets, supposedly, right? Revenue for December 2020, whole year, $95,000. Like,
you look at those numbers on paper, and you can call the bluff immediately. You see that on paper, so it's like, who was approving that or allowing it to get that much traction? How
to lie your way to $34 billion. So it's like, I think that affects us when we see that, like all that money that's being given to.
It's like a slap in the face
to things. But I always come back to this. That's why we need our own stuff.
I was just going to say that. And when you first started to, get into the story, in the back of my head, I'm thinking, of course, we can go down the rabbit hole and talk about, from the beginning of time and how we came into this world, having those different systems and structures in place that were meant to diminish our ability to succeed. So we can talk about that all day long. But there's also a big component in that where why do we not support one another and have these institutions in place for ourselves to create that type of dynamic?
Well, now, see, here's the thing: the great equalizer is crowdfunding to raise money,
Okay.
equity-based crowdfunding. And that's something we're probably going to be relaunching at some point. Maybe I got other things on the table before,
on now,
so
come on.
before I go that route. But that is something that helps the community, where you don't need to go get a venture capitalist now.
Right.
You can just go and raise money from 10,000 people.
Right.
If 10,000 people put up $100, like that's how we build wealth now. And now they own a piece of the company. I have investors who are in Inception because we've done crowdfunding already. We have people who are invested into what we're doing. They maybe put up $100, and that's micro amounts of investment. But at the same time, you still can say that you invested into that early before we even hit the public. See, when you get hit public, it's typically too late to go.
Yeah.
I mean, typically when you hit something at public, you can put your money into it and definitely make more money. But when you got into it before it even hit public, that's really when you made the money.
Right.
If Uber came to you just like they went to Beyonce, like, hey, we want you to perform at Coachella, and we're going to give you this amount of money in shares, like $6 million in shares. Well, by the time Uber goes public, those $6 million in shares is probably worth $60 million.
Right.
So thinking about it like that and working with each other like that. But another problem for us is that we don't have, just yet, we don't have the mental capacity to even get to that point. To even, and I talked to multiple people, black-owned crowdfunding sites where, we're still like, we hyped up and excited. I'm a CEO of my LLC, and it's like, yo, but that's a shell.
Yeah.
It is nothing yet.
We talked about that yesterday, where it's just like you mentioned, like I can go out and get an LLC, and now I'm walking around and touting myself like this big boisterous CEO,
Right.
but I still haven't taken the time to even put the work in yet to get to a level that is truly successful. And so I think that's where we sell ourselves short, because so much of our dynamic has been not being able to have these opportunities, that the minute we get them, we feel validated and forget that there's still additional work that has to be put in to get to that point. And prime example, no shade on my city. I love my city. But what I've seen a lot in my city recently is people have started businesses, and the concepts and ideas are phenomenal. As soon as they start to pick up speed and they're getting butts in the seats and they're starting to make a little bit of money, what's the first thing they do?
They go buy stuff.
They go buy the flashy car. They are starting to change who they date and spend money on their appearance. And it's like, your business is only a year or a couple years in. You're not at that point where it makes sense to start splurging. Put the work in and get to a point where you're making money in your sleep. Then it makes sense. So we're doing ourselves an injustice by not being willing to put that work in, and invest in something that's more concrete. It's kind of like these fly-by-night things, and we put a little bit of energy and effort into it, and then we're on the next cool thing or the next wave.
Well, that goes back down to those mental health issues and the programming that needs to take place, because and it's not just for black people, it's in people in general, is that we don't know how to delay gratification. We need to be able to get these things so that dopamine and that makes us feel better. I got my LLC. Well, so what? I want to opened up like 10 LLCs in the last like 5-6 years, like they're $50. They're, and then people, I got my LLC, but you didn't even go get an EIN number, or like Randy was saying on the other episode, it's like you ain't even you paid somebody all this money to go do it. You don't have
something you could have done your own.
Real, you know what I found the real benefit of actually coming from a corporate setting and then opening your own thing is that, one, if you're in a corporate setting, that's your learning ground. That's the ground you can see everything that these corporations is doing, and you can come out here and start your business and learn. I mean, not learn, but take what you've learned from there and apply it.
Right.
And when I mean learn, I don't mean learn just because you learn how to do Excel, or maybe you were helping manage the books or whatever. I'm talking about learning how they're doing their things in the wrong way too, and how you don't want to
Absolutely.
duplicate that. I saw how they treated me as an employee and us as employees. I was like, yo, when I worked at Kaplan University, I used to tell people, I said, you notice, I said, look, because South Florida is mainly Caribbeans and South Americans, and I'm like, look at us all on here on this second floor. I said, would you this second floor? I guess who above us? They the executive. I said, this we cotton picking. This
Right.
new age cotton picking right here. I
Yeah.
look all around on the second floor. It's all these black faces. You go up to the third or fourth floors upward. Executives, totally
Yeah.
different, right?
C-suite is a totally different dynamic. And that's one of the things that I used to have to address when I was running a diversity program for one of the companies that I work for is how can we tout ourselves on being diverse or having diversity when you look at our executive team and there's no diversity. And then we also have to take ourselves out of the mindset of let's just do things to get to a certain number so we can say, oh, we have X amount of minorities or X amount of women. No, it's not about the numbers looking good on paper. It's about having an open environment so that there's diversity of thought. And it's about, are you advertising in a way that is reaching a broader audience than what you're used to?
No, they aren't.
Yeah.
And why would they?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just playing
yeah.
devil's advocate. If I'm in a position, why would I go through all that?
Right. And
I'm
that
only
happened
I'm
to
only
me.
going. I own a company. I'm not gonna do nothing unless you try to make me do it. Like I'm not. This is how I'm gonna run my company. Unless the government say I got to come in and do it differently, this is how I'm gonna run my company. And that's everybody who has companies.
Yeah, and you see that time and time again where companies where they're like, if it's not broke, I'm not going to fix it.
Yeah.
So they're like, I will continue to operate in this way. But one of the things that I learned is these younger generations, partially my generation and the generations that are coming after me, they are no longer okay with that. There's no like, oh, this is working, or I'm loyal to this company because I like them, or I like the shoe. They're going with what they feel and what they feel is right. And so we are kind of seeing a dynamic and a change where people are starting to question and then also form alliances with places that are more open and embracing that.
I think it's important now to really, get upward and mobile in terms of you're from Cleveland, I'm in Detroit, but Michigan, but you're gonna do stuff with Inception and it crosses borders.
Yeah.
Like you now can work with people all around the world. Stuff, passion projects that you enjoy, companies that you enjoy, companies that have missions that you want to support and that you want to see come to fruition, and it typically it was never like that. I mean, we're from the Midwest, and the Midwest was built upon
Blue collar.
and cars.
Right.
Cars.
Industrial, factory.
Yeah.
Right.
You going in here and you're going to be on a line or whatever, and you're going to do like this and do like this and do like it's like you the Jetsons. You're hitting the button, and that's how it's going to be. But now with the internet, with social, now moving into Web 3.0, everything's going to become even more decentralized. People going to be making money in a lot of different ways. One of our engineers, DT, he got a app that just you can wrap your car. They pay you just to wrap your car.
Right.
Like, so doing something you do on a day-to-day basis, drive and just make money wrapping your car, or Uber or Lyft or whatever it is, all these different ways to make money. And a lot of people are not going to go and work in traditional settings because you get to kind of keep your freedom. So let's transition into entrepreneurship and freedom, because we talked about this yesterday and even talked about social media and influencers and what that looks like. So
Let's get into
now
it.
you're trying to navigate into the entrepreneurial world, and how is that transition thinking and just even thinking about it? Maybe not you even start anything, but just
Yeah.
even thinking about it, what's that feel like?
So has been, it's insane. Because, when you take that step to become an entrepreneur, it's scary, it's nerve-wracking, but you do have that sense of gratitude and freedom. And I was just of the belief, I'm already stressed out, so if I'm going to be stressed out, I'd rather it be for me,
yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
and what I'm working on than for something else. But I've also learned that everything isn't always what it seems. And so you really have to be cognizant of not only making a decision, but making an educated decision and looking at things from a lot of different perspectives so that you can have the knowledge that you need to go in whatever direction you want to go. So prime example, pandemic hits. This is during the time I lost my job, and I'm like, this is the perfect time to be a social media influencer. And of course, my entire life, everybody's like, you got the look. You have this look and this personality. And so I started to do some digging and really look into it. And I've never been that prideful person where, it's fun for me to be like, hey guys, welcome back to my channel. And this is what I got from Target today. Like, I've been more like, I like to capture the experience in the moment than to just throw my face in front of everything. And so I started to look into more with the social media, and I found that a lot of women or just influencers in general, they had all these different accolades and these different connections and these brand endorsements, and it looks so promising. So you're looking at, oh my gosh, she's sponsored by Fashion Nova, but then I'm looking deeper and I'm like, but wait a minute, she's in a Bentley and on private jets. Fashion Nova endorsements paying that much money? Like, since when? And then I uncovered a veil. One of my friends came to me and was like, yo, a lot, not all, of course. So let me, just have a caveat. There's definitely people who are doing it the right way and they put the work in, or they just stumbled upon a situation where they could collaborate and it really took them to the next level. So this is not to discredit any of the people who have really put the work in, because they do. But there was this veil that was uncovered of, women were going overseas and, making their money that way.
Well, making the money that way, was it?
And then coming back into the States.
Oh yeah, they were going. They're like prostitutes. They're prostituting and going over to like Dubai. I heard the stories like that. I've heard stories. And next having sex with animals and all types
of crazy stuff.
Yeah.
So, but of course, now first things first, that's their business. But as somebody on the outside looking in, you see this lifestyle that they have, and they're portraying themselves as an influencer. And so you're equating them being an influencer and them having these different endorsements to that could equate to this lifestyle and this money, not having all the pieces. And so once I realized that, it really just showed me we spend a lot of time showing the very best version of ourselves to the public. We do it every day when we get dressed and leave outside. That's what we've been conditioned to do. And there's nothing wrong with that. But you can't take that as just face value, because behind the scenes, you have no idea what other factors went into them being successful, and you don't see the downfalls. You see me on social media when I'm happy and I'm smiling and I'm feeling myself and I'm cute. You're not seeing me when I was depressed and in my closet crying and going through trauma because I didn't feel comfortable putting that out there.
I would say this, that, and Gary Vee talks a lot about this too. Like what social did was it turned entrepreneurship as some type of
glamour
fantasy.
Yeah, and it's this glamorous thing.
It is not glamorous. It is not fantasy, and it's a lot of, and what you find in that world, there's bad actors in all sectors, from politics to spiritual organizations to all of them. Wellness, it's bad actors in all of them. So there's always smoke and mirrors that take place, and you have to be able to, and that's why I always talk about being able to do that mental emotional work and filling yourself up with things that just be full of spirit, so that when you out here working these jobs or working in these corporations, like, that's not who you are.
Right.
That's just a job.
Right.
That's just a thing.
It's a means to
an end, right? Yep. So but and two, so the reason why I say that too is so then you won't get head knocked with the facades
Right.
of what you think is. It's the Wizard of Oz. It's the man behind the curtain. For instance, there always been people who sell marketing programs or how to make money. See, how to make money is always been, to me, it's always been the slimiest thing
Yeah,
ever.
it's
Because
BS.
guess what? Everybody wants to know how to make money because everybody believes that if I just made more money, then my life is going to be better. Right? So then you listen, if I made a lot of money and I make a course onto how to make money, first of all, if I've made a lot of money, I am not making a course on how to make a lot of money.
You on the island, what you feel?
Yeah, I'm not making a course
Relaxing.
on how to make money.
Yeah.
Then you go find out that they made all of their money teaching you how to make money,
Yeah.
but they never made the money outside of teaching you how to make
Yes.
money.
Best example ever.
You know?
Oh, and I get frustrated. This happened to me years ago, but I'm like frustrated right now thinking about it. I read that Rich Dad Poor Dad book, which was a phenomenal book. And it's not to discredit the book, anything like that. And they had a seminar. And the seminar was being promoted, Rich Dad Poor Dad. So I
You
thought,
thought Robert Kiyosaki was going to show up?
look, okay. So look, I'm excited. I've read the book. I go to the event. It's at a hotel. I get in there, and it was the most cult-like thing ever, where they are like, look at all these amazing people. We're going to bring them up. They're going to give their testimony on how much money they were able to make in real estate, and they're doing all these great things. Our course will train you and teach you all of these things. And at the end of it, it was, we want you to pay us this large sum of money to get this knowledge. And I'm thinking to myself, it's not like they're offering something cutting edge to where you can't get this knowledge. These are the same principles and things that you can literally look up on Google. So you mean to tell me these people are looking to get income and they're going to spend, and it was a big amount. It was like $800 to $1,000. $800 to $1,000 for you to tell them what they need. It was just complete and utter bullshit.
Yeah, and there's a lot of that out there. I will say that obviously we're on Earn Your Leisure's network, and I would say Troy and Rashad and Ian, like, they put out a lot of sensical information every week, and it's free.
Right.
Then they have their, if you want to go deeper, they have their, deeper element that's paid.
Right.
Right? But they're not selling you something
It's not a
they're
cash grab.
that they're not doing.
Right. Right.
First of all, that they're not doing themselves. So they're coming in like this. I'm going to hold your hand
Yeah.
and help you to
Through
do
this
this.
process.
And you're going to, with this group, we're all going to do it. Even my guy, Julian Gordon, who has the multifamily, where he teaches you how to buy multifamily homes. He don't just teach, he teaching you step by step to the point where the people who come in who follow those steps, then they show, I got my house.
Right.
Like they showing you, right? And they not charging you some, astronomical amount of money to do these things. But that's been one of the biggest, slimiest things in entrepreneurship. And a lot of people fall for that.
Yeah.
A lot of people fall for the, let me just show you how to get all these hundreds of thousands of followers of Instagram too. A lot of them are bought. A lot of them aren't
absolutely.
even yours. And two, when you do that, when you bought followers, I really don't even mess with you.
You diminish your entire
Yeah.
brand and it being something that's genuine.
Yeah.
So yeah, you see that all the time, and just like you were saying, there are certain things that have to come with the price. You know what I mean? Like, for example, you go to college to become a surgeon, you have to pay to get that knowledge to know how to cut, how to do this, how to do that. You can't just Google how to perform brain surgery. So there is a price, but like you said, the market is so oversaturated with the fluff and with the scams that it's so easy to get caught up in paying for something that really they're not giving you anything that they said they would, and they're not really helping you move the needle along like they said.
Mm-hmm. And that's that thing when you got to be able to smell a scam.
Oh yeah.
You got to be able to smell fraud.
But it's hard because I will say,
Is it?
well,
Is it? We talked about this yesterday. The
Mm-hmm.
fraud industry, this in the Nigerian is like a
Mm-hmm.
$1 billion industry. Is it? Or you just want to be,
You want to believe it
you
so
want to
bad
believe it,
because
yeah.
everybody wants that, like, that overnight miracle. So
Because
in
you
the
want to be saved.
right in the back of your head, it don't seem right, but you're like you're holding on to that little bit of hope.
Well, you ever heard
Gambling
that?
in
You ever
the
heard that if it
lottery.
seems too good to be true,
Then
it
it's
typically
probably
is.
yeah. I have a great example, and this will really, really. So I had a situation. I'm just laughing to myself because I cannot believe I have the balls to just come out and talk about this. But I had a situation where I had met this guy, and he was presenting himself to be a professional football player. Okay. And when he met me, he was immediately, it was like the gaslighting and love bombing. So you've met those people where, like, immediately they're like overly doing everything right. So where you're like, wait a minute, like, you gassing me up. So he came into the situation like, what car you want? Let's go online right now and pick out a car. Let's go on Icebox right now and pick out a watch. And I've gotten everything off the mud on my own. I've hustled and grinded for everything I got. So this was the first time in my life that a man was like, let me just take care of all of these different things. So as I'm going along, of course, my radar is so up, like, this is complete bullshit, and you know it. And I found myself still like, all right, let me get on this. What? And I'm just like, what are you doing? Like, you know this is not real, but you want to believe it so bad, or you're so excited about the opportunity for something like that, that you are just ready just to just jump ship. And it really taught me a valuable lesson about myself too, because I got so caught up in social media and seeing, you see these celebrities and they buy their significant other these lavish gifts and all these exciting things, and you want that for yourself. And I had to take a step back and say, why are you wanting that for yourself? You've worked hard for everything that you have. And so you really are going to allow a stranger that you haven't taken the time to know, that hasn't taken the time to get to know you, just come into the picture and just start throwing some materialistic things, and you on board with that? You are believing that? And it didn't get but so far, but it really, I had to take a look at myself, like, come on now, you better than that, and you better than that. So it was a moment.
With do you find that being a woman and trying to navigate entrepreneurship, or even being from the corporate world and the new age dating, and how, like, well, listen, if you're pretty, you just got to get cashed out.
Okay.
You're just supposed to get cashed out
Yeah.
and flew out.
Right. And I deal with it all the time. So I love to travel. You look at my social media and everything like that.
Yeah, every time I see it, I'm like, girl, where you
at?
Where do you work, first of all? Because you Tommy, you ain't got no job, Tommy, but you flying everywhere.
So that is just so true, because even with what I'm going through recently, my friends know that I, got let go from my job, and all these life things were happening, but they don't realize behind the scenes I've invested in certain things. I've made certain business moves. I've saved money and put aside a nest egg so that I can continue to keep myself afloat. But people see me and they just assume you're pretty. It must be some guy behind the scenes that's paying for this. That somebody is icing you out or doing this. And I'm like, listen, if I had somebody that was doing it, I had no problem in owning that, or even saying, yeah, that's where it came from, and touting that. But they don't see the 7 years that I really put the work in, and that I was in a corporate setting and I was really grinding it out. And then also, a lot of these opportunities, sometimes I will just go out on a limb just for the exposure, or to meet new people and for the connection. So it's not always a kick it. So you might see me traveling and doing all these different things and just assume, oh, you somewhere kicking it, or some guy. And it's really like, no, I needed a break from my environment, and I'm going here to have a new experience, to be exposed to something different that can open the door up to something else. So there is so much of that in our society. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like trying to weed through the facades of and trying to fit yourself in a world that really, specifically as a black woman or a black man, trying to fit into a world that was never even truly crafted for you. And there's a lot of wolves in sheep clothing. I mean, these is biblical statements. You know, this thing is not new. Being fooled has always been a thing.
It's a part of the game.
You know, it's a part of the game. And as you start to, you know, if you want to really, for me, how I've been able to navigate the business world by myself now, not by myself, but I mean, obviously myself, is again back down to that thing, like knowing what I really, really, really want, and not sacrificing, but not giving into it in terms of selling myself out for something. Because that's all you talked about. You just really selling yourself out. That's not what you really want. You want the outcome, but you're going to sell yourself out because you want the outcome. So really it's about, you know, finding what you really want. Understanding is not going to be easy. That is a journey. There will be lots of nights and days where you don't want to do what you're going to do.
You have to keep pushing forward.
You got to keep going forward. It was cold coming into here today. Yeah. Stopping to get gas. I was like, what the hell? It's like 5 degrees. My hands are freezing. Yeah. But we going to come and we going to keep it moving and get the podcast done. And you know.
You can't take shortcuts either. We get excited about those shortcuts.
Yeah.
But they don't always long term help you in that journey at all.
No, they don't help you. They actually they hurt you
more than anything,
because you weren't able to actually get the lesson that you needed to learn. So now you're going to come back and have to do it all over again. So when a thing comes to you that looks right but you know is not right and is wrong, it's better to just move on from it from the get-go.
And time will tell you everything.
Till next time, guys.
La, la, la. You've been listening to the Inner Wealth Podcast on EYL.
Get out the matrix and live.
Theme song produced by Be Ready for West Coast Creations. I am Raz Cass, reminding you to take action, be proactive, be congruent, get out of the matrix, get your mind right. We've automated mental health at inception. Join the movement.
La la la.
Inner Wealth Podcast.
La la la.
Inner Wealth Podcast.
La la la.
Inner Wealth Podcast.
Get out the matrix and live.